All right, everybody, we got another very special guest for you. Everybody, please welcome back to the show, Mr. Frank Martin. Welcome, Frank.
Welcome. Howdy. Hi.
Yeah.
Hello.
Thanks for coming back. That means Chris did something right last time.
Yeah, he made me talk about myself.
Yeah, that's it. That's all we really want. We just host the platform. We don't talk about
He
anything that's going on with
he
us.
fueled my narcissism.
There we go. Perfect. Well, let's get a little bit more of that today. Yeah, I'm super excited to talk about today's project 'cause I'm a big horror fan and horror comic book fan. The Macabre Motel Couples Retreat, a weird horror one shot. So you've written horror before, right? Or horror
Horror
genres?
is like my comfort zone.
Yeah.
I bounce around all over the place. I've done noir mystery and comedies, but I don't know, there's something about the feeling of being unsettled and scared that I find comforted. That's as weird as that is. If you're a fan of horror, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's that unspoken feeling.
Do you? Because I've written some horror scripts before, and I enjoy horror movies, but I do get like creeped out sometimes. But I think like sitting there and writing it, kind of seeing it from a different perspective of like, okay, maybe it's not that scary, or you start putting things in that are like, yeah, this would scare the shit out of me. Maybe I should add this or do it a specific way. Um,
The weird thing about horror is that it has such a spectrum. Like when you
right,
think of action, I mean, there's not all that much variation of action. Action's action.
right.
With horror, there's like tongue-in-cheek horror, comedy horror, there's super drama horror, there's supernatural horror, sci-fi horror. It's like there's just so many different facets of it that it's fun. You can approach it from so many different angles and still be original.
Yeah. So let's talk about Macabre Motel. What is this story about? What kind of story are you telling here?
So the first Macabre Motel came out, I think I launched in 2020. I don't know, man. It was just about this weird motel that a guy, because we all have that experience. We're driving late at night, we need to crash somewhere.
Mhm.
And I just had an idea for a story of like this place that's just super creepy and weird and unsettling. And I kind of threw a guy through that roller coaster ride. And people really dug the story. It was a one shot. And they always ask, like, are you going to do a follow up? Are you going to do a sequel? And I was just like, no, it's just, I stayed at the motel and now I'm done. I'm never going back. But when something hits you, you kind of, I never say never, and it stayed in the back of my mind. So I had an idea for another story this time. Same kind of routine. Couple stays at the motel, gets in over their heads, and it follows the same formula, but now it's a couple. It's not just one person. So I had a different way to approach it and make the story actually mean something rather than just a sequel for the sake of a sequel.
So you're treating it kind of like a
Anthology.
Twilight Zone kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
the hotel is a setting, and other people can come in, and different things could happen.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, the motel is just, I mean, Twilight Zone's good because that's exactly what I use to kind of pitch the book. It's that weird, it's horror, but it could be speculative sci-fi at the same
Yep.
time. That's kind of the genre it's in. But yes, the premise is that it's this motel and then different people stay at the motel and have different experiences. But the fun part is that some of the people at the motel are like mainstays. I guess they're
Yeah.
they're people that stay there all the time, you
Hmm.
know. So I get to have reoccurring of these side characters and supporting roles and people who work at the motel and stay at the motel all the time. So people that read the whole entire series can be like, "Oh, I know that guy."
Yeah. And you have to assume that if they're staying there full time, then they're probably a little weird themselves
Yeah.
for having
Well,
a reason to be there. Yeah.
well, the part about the motel, I guess, from a conceptual level, is that it doesn't matter who you are, whether you're like a space alien or an undersea kind of like creature. It will accommodate you. It will
Mm.
find a way to make you feel at home and make you feel comfortable, which is what hospitality is all about. So, despite the fact that to us it might seem weird or macabre, to a guest who would feel uncomfortable anywhere else, it's home.
That is, yeah, that's got
Unsettled.
yeah, some sort of unsettling comfort to it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I did an afterword in the back of the first story, and I was kind of talking about who the villain of the story is, because there's no real villain, right? It's
Hmm.
just a bunch of well-meaning people that creep you out. And in that afterword, I kind of talked about the villain being the concept of normalcy itself, right? Being normal. And none of us are really normal. So to see a place that kind of really leans into the fact that these super weird people are normal here.
Yeah.
I thought it was a cool idea that I guess resonated with people.
Yeah, like a safe haven for weirdos.
Kinda.
Kind of like a comic book shop almost.
Yeah. It's a Comic-Con.
Yeah, it's a
It's yeah.
hopefully not as smelly, but yeah. I mean, I think it's a really cool idea, and then leaves you the option to tell all different types of genre within like the
Yeah.
subgenres of horror, right? Like you said.
Yeah, the idea of the Macabre Motel is that nothing is really off limits. You know, I could
Mhm.
throw in a sci-fi room, or I could throw in a fantasy room, and all these different rooms can act like different experiences. It's my surrealist story, you know.
Mhm.
In the first one, I had no idea how people were going to react to it because I was kind of just throwing stuff at the wall. I'm like, how weird can I really get?
Yeah.
And you're never going to know how people react until they actually read it, and they're like, "This is super bizarre. I don't like it at all."
Mhm.
Or if it's grounded enough that they actually dig it. I think what helps is that the couple at the core of the story, the quote unquote normal ones, the story has a point to it. You know, it's not random just to be random. It's not weird just to be weird.
Right.
It's about this couple that's at a point in their relationship where there's friction, there's tension there. And then right off the bat, anybody who's been in a relationship when things are like a little uneasy knows that if you're thrown into a chaotic situation, it's not the best time to be dealing with that stuff.
Yeah.
So I think as long as I centered the core of the story around their relationship and then threw all the randomness around it, it didn't really matter what all that craziness was because it would still, I don't know, it would still ground it, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is something that you deal with pretty much with all of your comics since you do a lot of one-shots, but how is it like you built a world here and you're coming back to it, but one of the things that I hear a lot is like characters are so important and it can be really tough to flesh out. How do you deal with like trying to flesh out those characters in 24 pages?
You do it very quickly. I mean, we've all seen these types of stories, right? We've seen, we watched Creep Show or Tales from the Crypt, where they have a
Yep.
single episode and they have to introduce these characters, have a conflict, and have a resolution really quickly. And I try to like follow that formula, I guess, you know? They're on their way to the motel, you get a sense of their relationship, and then they go through the chaos of the motel, and then you try to bring it back to the relationship at the end. So I do my best, and it's kind of up to the reader whether or not I actually pulled it off and made them care about these people in just 20 some odd pages.
And the pre-launch page that you have up right now for Kickstarter, you have just a kind of a one page of the interior art there.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the artist that's working on this project a little bit?
Yes, Rodrigo Porchetta. He was like very eager to do this book when I pitched it to him. And it's weird because in the beginning, when you're starting to set things up, it's not all that weird because you want to set the setting, you want the people to be relaxed. It's not going to get bizarre right off the bat. And he was so chomping at the bit to get to those later pages when things really start taking off. And then once he got there, he kind of unloaded and had a great time just kind of messing with all the weirdness.
I really like the colors too. For just the one page you have, there's like the almost like retro wave, a lot of like dark purples and
it's not a bright story.
Yeah.
It's not a bright setting. You can't really go superhero with it. You kind of keep it grounded. And so I used an artist that I've worked with in the past who I trust, a colorist, I should say. And he's very good at knowing the mood a particular story has to take. He did my noir story, which again, I'm not a visual artist. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm trying to just give it to somebody who knows what they're doing and say, do the thing, do the thing that you do that makes I like, you know?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yep.
And I noticed too, as you're talking about the art team here, you went with a different artist for this issue than you did with the last one. Was there an artistic reason for that, or did you reach out to the previous artist to see if he'd come back?
I did, just to see what his schedule was like. It wasn't really working schedule-wise, so I wasn't really that concerned with switching an artist simply because of the way the story is. It kind of could cater to having a brand new art team. If it was a real continuation, like if I was following the protagonist from the previous story and following him up, I might have changed my release schedule around to accommodate him, but it wasn't really necessary. So, and you know what? the vibe Rodrigo gives to the story, it works perfectly. So I was okay with it.
Yeah, yeah, it does. So do you have a date set for this to come out?
No, November 12th, I think,
Okay,
which is exactly 1 week after the election. So,
there you go.
I mean,
It's gonna be a good time.
yeah, it's good. I'm super excited for this huge launch when
Yeah,
everyone's super happy about whatever happens.
yeah, whatever happens. Hopefully, the
But
comic industry's still around. Yeah,
yeah, but you
At
know
least the
what?
commercials will be done.
yeah, that's it.
I do 6 launches a year. I have a
Okay,
set schedule years in advance, so I can't really be like, hey, I'm gonna put it off for 3 months until
right.
everybody cools down.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I'm just gonna. I set my goal at something I thought was weird and funny. It's 1492,
Hmm.
which I thought was random
Yep.
because Columbus sailed the Orphanage
Oh
Blue,
yeah.
and Columbus Day is tomorrow. I should launch it tomorrow and just say have the goal at 1492.
There you go. That's what you. Yeah, that's what you should do.
But yeah, I try not to put huge expectations on myself
Hmm.
simply because I have so many launches and things are all set. It doesn't really matter if they bomb or if they do really well. I have to keep going. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna launch a week after the election when everybody is telling me not to.
Yeah,
Or I should just launch on the election. Be like, I don't know what's going on
yeah.
today. It seems like
Nobody
a
else has anything going on.
no. It
Whatever.
seems like a dull day. I'm just
Yeah,
gonna throw this out there and see if you want to read a comment.
yeah. I might want
So,
to.
real quick, I would love to like rewind a little bit to your previous two campaigns because you did two recently, and one's still on late pledges, so you could still get in on everybody. But they're both comedies,
Yeah.
and that seems a little out of left field for you. So I would love to hear more about like what made you go down that road and why you chose to do some comedies, specifically the very tastefully named Fart Bomb.
It, it it wasn't a choice to do two comedies in a row. It just kind of worked out that way. I have a shiny thing disease when it comes to doing projects. I see a shiny story and I just go after it. And depending on when it's done and when it falls in the schedule, that's when I release it. But yeah, it wasn't like I want to do a comedy and this is the comedy that I'm going to do. I had an idea for a fourth wall breaking character and I wanted to explore that, and that's what that became. And I had an idea of making my son a fart terrorist, and I kind of just explored that idea. And it just so happened that exploring both of the ideas happened to be funny and silly and comedic. I'm like the Joker in Dark Knight. I just do things,
Yeah,
I don't scheme.
yeah. You just impulsively start making stuff.
I just impulsively start dumping a lot of money into these projects that take months,
Yeah.
sometimes years to.
You're like, that's a great idea. I'll get started right now. But
Yeah.
it's gonna take
Have
a
you
while.
found, because as I was going through your previous campaigns, you seem to have a baseline. Have you found that you have that baseline, like the same people are coming back no matter what the project, just because they like Frank?
Yeah. Yeah. There are some that are like hardcore. They read a lot of my stories, and then I release the fart bomb, and they're like, that's a little too far from me. But it does mean a lot when I don't necessarily care about appeasing my audience, and then they don't care that I don't care. And then they follow me from project to project simply because they've enjoyed everything I read, even though it's all over the place. And they trust me enough that they'll back it, even if they have no idea what it is or not
Very
familiar with
cool.
it.
Yeah, that's cool to see that as you put more out there that you have a growing fan base.
Yeah.
And like you said for this the motel story, you have people wanting more of it, right?
Yeah.
Like specifically asking for it. Yeah.
It is 4 years later. It's
Mhm.
rare. I haven't really done a follow-up like this before where something was done, and
Yep.
then I decided to do something new. I have done like 2-issue stories or 4-issue stories. But you know what? I think I've scratched the one-shot itch. I do want to try to build something bigger. And so next year, I'm doing all 6 of my launch will be for my Grim Space title, which is kind of taking fairy tales and giving them like a Star Wars spin to it. So it will be nice to double down on just one thing and
Yeah.
build it up and see what I can really do with it.
Nice.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just looking at that because that's the book that got me into your work. And as I was going through, I was like, I was counting down, like that's 6 comics, and you just said 6. So it's kind of funny that you're just going all in on that and seeing how that works out.
You know what it is? I love playing with universes. and it's going to be my MCU. You know, I'm basically I have all these one shots that are part of this universe, like Thor, Iron Man. They're all standalone films, but all the characters have cameos. You know, they're all going to cross over. They're all know each other, and eventually I'll bring them all together into my like Avengers, where they're all in the same book and it's like a team story. So I'm having a lot of fun designing that, and you're like a kid with in your toy box, and you take out all the figures and you got to place them all over the place. So when you do a one shot, it's kind of like, okay, I'm done. I got to throw all of these figures out and buy new ones. Whereas this, I just get to keep adding on more, and I'm having a lot of fun with it.
And I like too that you plan on doing another free comic book day issue for it too, with Humpty Dumpty no less.
Yeah, that's a fun one. I remember I put a question mark, right? I didn't.
Humpty Dumpty meets question mark.
Do you want to know who it is?
If you want to reveal it here for the first time, I don't know.
I don't know if I talked about it. Like I said, I just do things. You think I plan this stuff? It's going to be Dr. Frankenstein.
That's really cool.
He's going to try to put Humpty Dumpty back together again.
That makes so much sense. When
That's
you think about
awesome.
It.
Yeah.
And that's what's great about just public domain in general is that I'm not sticking to Grimm's fairy tales. I'm going to try to throw every public domain character that I enjoy. Sherlock Holmes spin is coming in. I'm going to do an Island of Dr. Moreau. These are all like stories from the 1800s. Nothing to do with Grimm's fairy tales, but it's just cool to throw them all in this universe and to see what kind of sci-fi twist I could give them.
Awesome.
Yeah. I was going through it, like, you got the ones you expect, Three Little Pigs, Piglians.
Yeah, that's the next one. That's the one I'm working on hot and heavy now.
But the one that stands out is the Monkey King's Crown.
That one I'm just starting art on. I'm about to get the first pages on. The one I'm looking forward to the most is the Peter Pan one, which is the Ballad of Captain Hook. Because a lot of the stories, I use Star Wars as the baseline, you know? I kind of imagine what these characters would be like in Star Wars. But because I was a Star Wars guy, I was not a Star Trek guy, but I'm getting into Star Trek. So this one is going to be my Star Trek story. I'm having Captain Hook be like a Star Trek, starship captain, Starfleet captain.
That's cool.
And the Jolly Roger is going to be modeled after like the Enterprise or one of those ships.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I'm treating him going to meeting Peter Pan, landing on his planet, kind of like an episode of Star Trek. So it's going to be. I had a lot of fun with that. I'm looking forward to see how that turns out.
Yeah, that's
awesome. Yeah, I'm super excited for the Year of Grimm's Space, personally.
Me too. I like those free comic book day one shots because there's so many fairy tales. You know, there's so many characters, and I can't give them all like 30-page stories. So doing a 5-page short and getting it out there just so that people can check it out is fun.
Yeah, I thought it was funny last year you did Steamboat Willie as the
Spaceship Willie.
Yeah.
That was, you know what, I was going to do Humpty Dumpty last year, or was it this year? This year. And then I saw Steamboat Willie was becoming public domain at the top of the year. So I was like, I got to jump on that. I can't wait. I got to do it right away. Strike while the iron's hot.
For the motel one shot, are we going to see the original available on the Kickstarter, like the older issue? Okay.
We are. I don't have many of the variant covers left. I'm running out of those. So basically I'm putting my remainder stock of those up there. And if those go, they're go. I'm not really going to print more. But yeah, most definitely. You know what? It's easy. It makes it easier when you have past stuff you could put as part of the pledge levels. You don't have to try to figure out things to cover, to sell. So yeah, I'll have bundles for if you get both in prints. I'll have bundles to get both in digital. Okay. And as part of the other campaign, the first one, I wrote kind of an original short prose story that takes place in the universe too. So
nice.
There are other tales that kind of involve the motel. So yeah, like Grimm's Space, I think it's got a little different sort of legs to kind of just play around in the universe and have different adventures.
Yeah, that's a cool idea, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It feels like something you can keep coming back to whenever you have a new story you want to tell.
Yeah.
It's got to make sense though. It's one of those things where if you try to milk it, people are going to know, you know, because it's just, it's a motel. There's only so many cool things you could do with it. So if you just have like something really stupid, it's gonna come through.
You just have it connected to some underground connection of other motels across the world. And then you can do another one shot of another motel in another part of the world. I don't know. That's That's not milking it to me. I'd be like, oh hell yeah, where are we
Macabre
going?
Hotel, Las Vegas.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of like I don't know, some like desert somewhere. I don't know, some like
I just said Las Vegas.
yeah.
What?
Well, like not in the U.S., like somewhere outside of the U.S. I don't know. I'm terrible at geography, so you can figure it out. You're the writer, Frank, so I'll leave it up to you. So hey, I'm super excited for it, and you said it's launching second week in November.
I think the 12th.
You're gonna
if
November
I know it's
12th.
the week after the election, so the election is the 5th. I think it's the
Yep.
12th.
So 7 days after that makes sense.
But people can find it now and go get notified about it when it does launch.
Pre-launch is live. I try to make it a point to have my pre-launch live as soon as my previous campaign is over.
Mm-hmm.
So I can always just say, go to my Kickstarter. It doesn't matter what time it is. Like I have something you can go to.
Yep. Great. And if our listeners, our viewers want to follow you and all the stuff you're doing, do you have somewhere you want to send them specifically?
The easiest way, if you really want to keep up with what I'm going on, is www.frankthewriter.com is where you can sign up on my mailing list. I send out bi-monthly emails. Bi-weekly. Every 2 weeks, I send it out. And or at Frank the Writer is my socials. You could follow me along. All that jam.
And to everybody out there watching and or listening, as always, I'll have links in the show notes down below. Links to the Macabre Hotel issue 2, whatever we're calling it, to the Kickstarter page so you can get notified about it. I'll also include a link to the Fart Bomb in case you want to get on that late pledge. That is still available. And of course, Frank's website and all of his socials down below as well. Frank, so much for stopping by and chatting with us for a little bit. We appreciate it. We look forward to next time, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me.